Hey everybody, and here we are again with yet another webcam review that's, well, months after the last one. And I'm sorry about that. I wish I could review more films just as they come out more regularly, but part of it is money. I can't see as many movies as I would like to. Another part of it is the fact that I'm at school, and I don't generally film reviews at 3 in the morning when I'm at school. It's not 3 in the morning right now, it's more like 2:30. But still, the point is, I don't do as many of these as I would like, and I'd like to change that. So I'm going to see probably quite a few movies this summer, and I'll endeavor to make a review with everyone as I can. So, with this, I've decided to do this as a bit of a review double feature, partially because these are both superhero movies, and partially because I just saw them again, and also partially because, again, I haven't done one of these in a while, so I want you guys to get more bang for your buck. Not that you're paying anything for this, but still, so we're going to be discussing The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and X-Men Days of Future Past in that order. And I'm going to go ahead and warn people right now. I usually like to try to keep these things spoiler-free, but at least with X-Men, I don't see how I can discuss the movie without doing that, because there are things I want to talk about, and I sort of have to spoil some things in order to do that. So if you don't want to be spoiled, at least on X-Men, and possibly Spider-Man 2, if I start talking spoilers, I'll warn, then stop watching this, because there's going to be some spoilers. So just be ready for that. You have been warned, and let's get started. We're going to start with Amazing Spider-Man 2, as I said. Now, I wanted to do this after I got a second viewing of it in, because the first time I was a little blown away by, what was going on the screen in front of me. Now that I've had time to let it sink in, to really think about it, now I'm ready to talk about it. So let's start with the story. Peter Parker has been Spider-Man for quite some time at the beginning of this movie, probably about a year or so. He's an established part of New York. The police trust him more. It's a good year for Spidey. He thinks he's got it all going on. He's dating Gwen. He's graduated second in his class from Midtown. And Spider-Man is popular. So that's wonderful. But he starts having that wonderful Peter Parker Spider-Man guilt complex that he gets into, and he starts seeing the ghost of Gwen's father pretty much everywhere. So he decides to break up with Gwen and, work on being Spider-Man a little more than he should. While at the same time, Harry Osborn, Peter's childhood friend, I guess, has taken over his father's company, Oscorp, which, of course, Peter's father, Richard Parker, used to work for. And at the same time as this is going on, you've got Max Dillon, a sad, lonely Oscorp electrical factory employee. Whatever. He's a researcher, he's a scientist, all that kind of stuff. And he's, ignored by the world, and he's, he doesn't have a good situation, but he becomes Electro through wonderful circumstances, and that's most of the conflict of the movie is Peter struggling with his inner demons, struggling with his relationship with Gwen, and of course struggling with all these forces that seek to take him down. So let's start with the pros. First of all, the pros for this movie are that the performances remain incredible. Andrew Garfield is great as both Spider-Man and Peter Parker, I think. Emma Stone is great as Gwen Stacy. She and Garfield have spectacular chemistry, and oh lord, okay, here comes a spoiler for Spider-Man. Gwen dies. It's not that big of a spoiler because, I mean, this comic has been out since 1970-something. So, I mean, it's not really that big of a deal. But, I don't know. They could have pumped more out... Not pumped more out of her character. That's terrible. No, but they could have given her character a little more before they killed her off, I think. Not that they didn't have plenty, because it's wonderful the dynamic that they have in this movie. And, that's to the film's credit. Dane DeHaan is a spectacular Harry Osborn. Absolutely splendid. You feel the sense of abandonment that Harry's had, like, his entire life. He relates to Peter with it in a way, and, actually, so much of this movie rotates around the theme of loss, the theme of abandonment. And, Peter feels it, Gwen feels it at times, Harry feels it, Max Dillon, Electro definitely feels it, and it's a major theme of the film. Every character feels like lost or abandoned in some way, and it's great. It's so wonderful. Even Aunt May gets in on that a little bit later on in the movie, and that's a great through line for the film. Also, everybody wanting something that they can't have. Not so much with Gwen, because Gwen's sort of getting almost everything she wants in this movie. But Peter's having a difficult time about it. Harry's having a difficult time getting what he wants, because Harry's dying, and he needs... a little bit of a spoiler, I guess. He thinks that Spider-Man's blood will save his life because, his father, Norman Osborn, and Peter's father, Richard Parker, were doing these experiments with these spiders that, he thinks will cure his disease and save his life and, save him from suffering the same horrible fate as his dad, who died of plot convenience disease, also known as the Green Goblin disorder. So, yeah, the theme of, like, desperately trying to get what you want, because what Peter wants is to not only be Spider-Man, but also he's struggling with the need to be with Gwen, and to be in love with Gwen, and to, and he's trying to balance that normal Peter Parker life with everything that Spider-Man is. And that was a very strong element of the film. Harry's desperately trying to get this cure for his disease, and he'll go to any lengths necessary in order to try and get that. And you feel his desperation. You feel the lengths that he's going to in order to try to get this. Max Dillon, you sort of feel that to a lesser extent. Because he feels generally ignored by the world for most of the film. He feels like, nobody cares about him. He finally finds a friend in Spider-Man. He becomes obsessed with Spider-Man. He thinks that he's finally found what he's looking for. And then it all falls apart for him. And that, more than anything, is what drives him to become the villain. And it's interesting. It's good writing. It really is very, very interesting. And I'm glad that was a through line, a dynamic that they explored for most of the story. And the actors, as I stated previously, pull that off supremely well. Garfield and Emma Stone's chemistry is spectacular. Their performances alone, Sally Field's Aunt May this time around is... there's such strength there. I wish they would have used her more. She was remarkably underused in this film, and I'm going to get to other stuff that was remarkably underused in this film in a little bit. But, the performances were great, the story was well put together. The conflicts were very good, very interesting. You legitimately got time to get to know these characters, get to know their backgrounds, their motivations, what it was they wanted out of the situations that were going on in this movie, and that's to its credit, and I think that was a great way to go this time around. Especially with a sequel, since, I mean, we had a whole movie to get to know them anyway, so... But with the new characters, each of them is given a lot of equal time, except for one that I'm gonna get to in a minute. But overall, the story, the characters, the writing, very strong, very well put together. I thought it was great. And now we're gonna get into the cons of the movie, and now that it's had time to sink in, there's more than I thought there were. The first and most blatant one is the underuse of some characters. With the marketing of this movie, they were talking about how Paul Giamatti was going to be in this movie. Paul Giamatti, acting giant, playing the Rhino. And he does, for all of 2 minutes of screen time. I mean... I joked about it at the time. I'm talking about, you know, having Paul Giamatti in your movie and then just having him scream for a while, and he was desperately underused. I don't know how he feels about that. I mean, I don't know if they're bringing him back for sequels or whatever, but they better, because, I mean, that character was just... He didn't have a lot going for him, and I feel like he could have had a lot more going there, especially since they were touting him as one of the main villains, and it's good. Another underused character was definitely Sally Field's Aunt May, because it was a spectacular performance, but the only thing about it was, I didn't see enough of her. I really didn't. And what's really fascinating is, and I noticed this the second time around, is that I'm pretty sure that Aunt May knows he's Spider-Man. I really am. She keeps dropping these subtle hints through the whole movie, like, oh, we always keep secrets, even from the people that we love, when she's talking about his father. And then, later on, close to the end of the movie, you know, it's too bad about that spider guy, you know? It seems like people really miss him. She knows. She absolutely knows. How could she not? I mean... And I really wish they'd played with that dynamic a little bit more. And that's another one of the complaints I have about the movie, actually. Peter Parker is a selfish asshole in this film, for a lot of it, I noticed. Because, not all of it. And not all of Peter Parker's character is as a selfish asshole. But the thing about it is, he seems to always be thinking about himself for most of the movie. He seems to be thinking not about, like, the whole power and responsibility thing that I thought he had learned in the previous film, but, when he learns that, I mean, he's selling photos to the Bugle to help Aunt May, supposedly. They never really go into much about that. But, and then, I'm trying to put this thought together. He learns that Aunt May is, like, going to nursing school in order to try and support him for going to college. Well, she's already doing double shifts, at this waitressing job that she's doing. And Aunt May is working herself to death, and Peter's thinking about other situations in his life. I mean... I'm sorry, I knew this was going to come off as a lot of fanboy griping, but that's not Peter Parker. Okay, that is not Peter Parker. Peter has always cared about Aunt May first, ever since what happened to Uncle Ben. It's a huge part of his power and responsibility thing, and them shafting Aunt May like that, and them making it seem like Peter didn't give a crap about Aunt May's problems, which... Maybe he did, he probably did, but the movie didn't really show that at all. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Andrew Garfield is a better Spider-Man than he is a Peter Parker. I hate to compare to the old movie series, but they had the opposite problem, where Tobey Maguire was a great Peter Parker, but not such a great Spider-Man. They fixed that with these movies, but I think there's a middle ground somewhere between Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, and I've heard other people say that before, and I will agree with that. I don't know where it is, I don't know how to find it, but it's there. It's definitely there. I know I had other complaints. I'm blanking on them right now for some reason. Oh yeah. Jamie Foxx. Let's talk about Electro for a minute. I'll admit, Electro had an interesting motivation as a character. Electro had a reason for doing what he was doing. I don't think Jamie Foxx knows what a nerd is. And I've talked with other people about this, and before his transformation into Electro, he's kind of an obsessed character, but I feel like I don't know. I don't even know how to articulate it. It's just something about his performance before he becomes Electro rubs me the wrong way. Once he gets the electric powers, he's fine, but I don't know. There's just something weird and insincere about it. It's interesting, but it's insincere, and I don't know why I feel that way. I don't know what it is about the performance that made me feel that way, but it's there, and it bugs me, and I don't know why. I'm sorry, I wish I had more there. Oh, what else? I know I had more that... Oh, yeah. Okay, so I've already praised the relationship between Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy, but Peter comes off as a little creepy at some points in this movie, and I didn't notice it until the first time around. Like, there's a scene where, they've broken up, and she asks him to, hang out for a little bit, just as friends, so they can, figure this whole thing out. And he's, they're starting to talk about stuff, and she's like, oh, I go to this place that has these great Korean meatballs now, and he's like, oh, yeah, I know, and she's like, well, I've only been going there for a month, how could you possibly know that? And he's like, and then she's like, wait, have you been following me? And it's like, yeah, sorta, and it's like, how often? And it's like, only once a day. Okay, I'm sorry, that's not charming, that's creepy. That is really creepy, and I know that he says he's doing it to protect her, but that's really creepy. I don't care if he's in love with her or not. Following someone around without their knowledge is creepy. I'm sorry, it just is. And if people feel free to disagree with me and make a convincing argument. That's part of the reason why I make these things, is so that, people can hear my opinion and perhaps dispute it. But for me, he's a little creepy. Just a little bit. It really didn't turn me off to him or anything, but it was something that bugged me. Well, alright, well, I've probably talked about this movie enough, so final sum up, I enjoyed it. I think that Andrew Garfield is still a really great Spider-Man. I think the storytelling is good. It keeps on getting more and more convoluted, though. I mean, with the stuff with Peter's parents, and the stuff with Harry's apparently forming the Sinister Six now, or whatever. And I know there's a Sinister Six spin-off coming, which I don't know how they're gonna do that, but whatever, I'll wait it out. I do know that I want to keep seeing these movies because I really like this take on Spider-Man. It's not perfect. It is not. There has not been a perfect take on Spider-Man yet, but I do really like this particular take, and I do want to keep watching. I genuinely do. Especially since now I've already complained about the whole Peter doesn't really adhere to the power and responsibility thing. At least I don't think he does. By the end of the movie, he's really starting to turn that around. I think Gwen's death makes him realize, like, he really does need to start thinking about this. Like, he has a certain responsibility to those people, that not only the people that he cares about, but also random people on the street. Which, I'm not saying that he doesn't care about these people. I don't think he was doing enough. And I don't know, that's probably my take on Peter Parker's guilt complex coming in. But I think that's development that we can see in later movies, and I'm glad that they ended it the way they did, because it makes things, it's going to make things really interesting for the next couple of films. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. I would recommend it. I don't know if it held up as much the second time around, but, I still liked it. I still liked certain elements. I was just looking for, other things this time around. Other things to, I guess, nitpick. I don't know. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Go see it if you feel so inclined. Yeah, that's about it for Spider-Man. Now let's get into the real meat. Oh man, I have been dying to talk about this movie. X-Men Days of Future Past. So let's get into the story. So, in the future, the world has pretty much been overrun by, mutant hunting robots known as the Sentinels. They, are able to adapt to suit a mutant's power and find a way to take them down in a very specific and individual way. So, the X-Men, or what's left of the X-Men, including some new faces, have been running for years from the Sentinels, and they think that they've finally found a way to go back in time and make sure that the thing with the Sentinels never happens. So, the deal is, there's apparently a facet of Kitty Pryde's power now that enables her to send people's consciousness, back in time to, place their future consciousness into their past bodies, which will enable them to try and go back in time. Now, they want to send Professor Xavier back so he can go into his old body and, try and stop this from afar. See, what happens is, and here I said I'm going to be discussing this with spoilers because I don't feel there's any way to do it without. They have to go back in time in order to stop Mystique from killing the creator of the Sentinels, Dr. Bolivar Trask, who, his death set off a bit of a chain reaction that convinced the, government of the United States that the Sentinel program was actually the right thing to do. So, Professor Xavier wants to go back because he was not only close with Mystique back then, but also because he, essentially wants to stop her from going down the path that led her to become a killer. But, Kitty says his consciousness can't take it, because, it would essentially tear his brain apart. So, Wolverine decides to take the responsibility and go back, not only because he exists in both time periods, but because his healing factor will enable him to survive the decades-long trip. So they send Wolverine's consciousness back in time in an effort to try and stop Mystique from killing Bolivar Trask and stop this whole future thing from coming to pass. And in order to do that, he has to recruit the services of young Charles Xavier, young Magneto, young Beast, essentially anybody who's still in this time period. And things get really, really interesting. Alright, so let's get into the pros, and to start off with, the performances are incredible. Oh, absolutely marvelous. Every single person in this movie was giving their all, was giving a damn. It was glorious, and it was delightful to see these characters brought to life again. Hugh Jackman is still the absolute perfect Wolverine in this movie, probably more so than any. I know I said that about the Wolverine last year, but it's even better in this movie. And the best part of it is, you can see the character development that Hugh Jackman's Wolverine has been going through all these movies. He's saying things to young Charles Xavier that the Wolverine in the first X-Men movie would not have dreamed of saying. And it's absolutely beautiful to see how Hugh Jackman has changed through playing this character. It's beautiful. James McAvoy blows me away as young Charles Xavier. He's passionate. He's giving it his all. And there are 2 times that I cried in this movie. One of them was when young Charles Xavier is using Wolverine's mind to communicate with the older Charles Xavier, played by Patrick Stewart, in the present time. And oh my god, Patrick shows him the school, and he shows him the good things that are going to happen if they're able to change history, and it's just gorgeous. And James McAvoy plays all facets of the Charles Xavier character. He plays like the frustration with the world that Charles is facing after being crippled and having his school closed down and everything, and then he plays the hopeful side, the side of Charles Xavier that knows things can get better, and that he can be a force for change. It's beautiful. And Michael Fassbender's young Magneto is a perfect foil to that. He also believes he can make things change, but in a completely different way. He believes that the way to make things change is to, go out and make a show of force, force things to change instead of working with the system and working with it gradually and showing people. He's trying to force a change, and you can see the dichotomy between the two that's absolutely beautiful. And Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen in the future even show that they regret so much the fighting that they did in their youth, because they're out for the same goal, which is what is best for mutant kind, but they both go about it in such an interesting way. And Ian McKellen's Magneto in the future is even like, "We wasted so many years fighting each other, Charles." And it's just... And then you go back and you see them wasting those years fighting each other, and oh my god, the Charles Xavier Magneto dynamic is just what absolutely makes these movies. And I know I'm saying that about Hugh Jackman too, but as I say, every performance in this movie is absolutely stellar. Stellar, I tell you. Nicholas Hoult continues to be great as Beast. Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique was going through so much in this movie. She's convinced that, that this one thing that she has to do will make things better, even when she's been told that it absolutely won't. She is convinced that if she kills this one person, Bolivar Trask, played by Peter Dinklage, who gives a spectacular performance as well, she's convinced that this will make things better. That if Trask is dead, it will absolutely save mutant kind. And she will not be deterred from this path, no matter what, and it is absolutely beautiful. Jennifer Lawrence pulled it off so well, and she just captures Mystique so absolutely incredibly well. I know I'm fanboying again, but you don't even understand how much I love the X-Men. New character. Well, there are a lot of new characters this time around. Evan Peters as Quicksilver. Fabulous addition to the film. I wish they had used him more. He's only in maybe 20 minutes of the movie in total, and you needed more of him because he was absolutely perfect. From the moment he walked on screen, I knew he was Quicksilver, and he was wonderful. The way he spoke, the way he acted, his attitude, it was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Then, I'm gonna get back into the old characters, because, Halle Berry's Storm was again, particularly underused, but there were circumstances behind that. Halle Berry got pregnant during filming, so they couldn't use her as much as they may have wanted to. But from what she did, it worked. It was wonderful. It was great. Halle Berry's Future Storm is great. Ellen Page's Kitty Pryde was spectacular. The other performances in the future, you know, you've got Daniel Cudmore's Colossus, Shawn Ashmore? Yeah, it's Shawn Ashmore. Shawn Ashmore's Iceman, who's really interesting, torn between the fact that he's in love with Kitty and the fact that he still needs to do the right thing in order to help the X-Men to survive. Sort of. It's not really touched on that much, but it's really interesting to see in his character. Then there are the new people, like Omar Sy's Bishop, Fan Bingbing's Blink, I forget who plays Sunspot, Boo Boo Stewart's Warpath. It's just, everybody turns in such a good performance. Oh, it's so good. And the story is so intricately well put together. Even, like, just the little throwaway lines, like, Quicksilver's, oh, well, you manipulate metal. Huh. My mom knew somebody who could manipulate metal. And then, like, Magneto gets put in prison because they think he killed JFK. And then when they break him out, they're like, he's like, I didn't try to kill JFK. I was trying to save him. And they're like, why? Because he was one of us. JFK was a mutant? Okay. I sort of wanted more explanation from that, but it made me think about so much. And it was really interesting, the take on history they had, because part of this takes place in an alternate 1973, and the 18 and a half missing minutes on the White House tapes were actually a meeting between Nixon and Bolivar Trask. Who knew? Heh. But yeah, part of the way this movie was shot was that they use like what looks like TV footage in order to show some of the parts of the movie where like major public events, and that really made you feel a little more immersed in the world, which was a really cool way to do it, I thought. And the way they make the mutants, like, intertwined with history things, like, you know, putting Magneto at the JFK assassination, or Mystique shooting Trask at the peace accords for the Vietnam War in Paris. It's really interesting to see the way that they're entwining the X-Men's history with real life historical events, and that's. Oh, it's really fascinating. Also, the makeup got a lot better this time, too. I know I'm rambling a bit, but, the makeup got so much better. With First Class, I had a complaint about, Nicholas Holt's, Beast makeup, because, honestly, it was dreadful. This movie got a lot better. He looks more like a werewolf than a giant cat, but, that's okay. I'm working with it as long as it looks presentable. Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique makeup, it felt like, even got better this time around, which, is good. Is very good. And, yeah, all around, everything just improved from First Class, so that's great. Alright, I've discussed a lot of pros with this movie, so let's get into some of the cons, which, as I said, I wanted to see it a second time because, again, blown away by how good this movie was. So I wanted to see it a second time so that I could see if I actually caught any cons. And I did, so, there we go. Some of the characters were underused. There were a lot of characters in this movie, but some of them felt underused. I've already mentioned Halle Berry's Storm. So Anna Paquin comes back as Rogue for all of 30 seconds. I understand she had more scenes in the film, but that they were cut. I don't know why. Maybe it was for a good reason. Maybe if I had the Rogue scenes in there, they wouldn't make any sense. I don't know. But, you also had Havoc in here from X-Men First Class for, again, about 2 minutes of screen time. And I felt that was him and some of the other New Mutants that they've introduced. Like, they introduced Toad again in this movie, they introduced Plague in this movie, they introduced some guy who made people's eyes go black in this movie. And, I felt they were all, like, pretty underused. Like, there's this big final battle in Washington, D.C. in 1973 that, you could have had, like, you even see some people watching it on TV. Like, what if Havoc were to see it on TV and go, oh my god, it's Eric, I need to go there and help people. And it really would have, like, been supportive of the X-Men's message a little more. That would have been ways that you could have included these characters in the film a little bit more than you did. That was really most of the complaint I had with the film. Also, it felt like there were a few little continuity gaffes here and there, or things that might not have been explained quite as well. Like, I'm still not sure what exactly the facet of Kitty's power is that enables her to send people's consciousness through time, but I went with it. I didn't really question it that much. I knew it was happening. I just wish they'd told me what it was a little bit more. I don't think it was very clearly explained. Correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but I've seen it twice now, and I was listening for an explanation this time, and I don't think I really got one. I don't think so, anyway. Yeah. That's most of the cons, that there were underused characters, and that there were a few things that weren't really explained very well, I guess. So, final sum up, oh my god, it's incredible. X-Men Days of Future Past is incredible. I will say, I think X-Men 2 is still my favorite X-Men movie, but only because of Nightcrawler. Really, that's the only reason. Because Days of Future Past has an incredibly well put together story. The performances are incredible. I love it. I absolutely love this movie. I love it so much. Oh my god. As I said, there were two scenes in this film that made me cry. I already mentioned the McAvoy-Stewart one, I think. But the other one is when the future X-Men are found by the Sentinels in the present, and everybody is like, they know they can't stop the Sentinels, but they're fighting desperately hard to slow them down, to buy those last crucial moments for Wolverine, so that he and Charles can save the past, so that they can change the future. And it's, oh man, all the X-Men are like going out in blazes of glory, all these people that I care so much about, and that's another scene where I teared. I cried in the theater, and I am not ashamed to say that, because it's beautifully well put together. The music is excellent. I love my mutants. I love my mutants so much. I really do. And I know that a lot of this has just been fanboying and everything, but that's a lot of where it's coming from, is just my love for these characters and these situations. But even if you're not fans of these characters, it's just a well put together movie it's a great alternate take on history. It's well put together performances, well crafted situations, and just you care about what happens to these people, especially since you see where the future leads them. You're like, oh, if they take this turn, what does it mean for the future? You know, that sort of thing. And the best part is that, okay, here's where the spoilers really come in. When they do fix the future, it completely erases the worst parts of the X-Men movie series. It completely erases X-Men 3 from continuity. Apparently it erases the death of Jean Grey. It erases the death of Scott Summers. It erases, and it keeps the things that I really liked about X-Men 3, like Kelsey Grammer as Beast, and Ellen Page as Kitty Pryde. it fixed the X-Men series. It really did. Maybe it means that Jean doesn't get the heroic sacrifice at the end of X-Men 2. Maybe it does. I don't know. My working theory is that Professor X knows about what happens to Jean because of what he read in Logan's mind when he was in the past, and was able to figure out a way to stop it this time with the prior knowledge that he had. So, that's my working theory. I don't know if it's true or not, but, that's what I think. But it fixed it. It fixed it. It fixed, the X-Men series. And I'm so glad it did, because it's all for the better. Because the movie ends with this hopeful scene in the future Xavier Institute, where, everybody's teaching, like, young mutants. I mean, I'm sure mutants still have their problems, but it's looking pretty good, and that's wonderful. All this, especially with everything that you had seen the future X-Men go through in this movie, to see it all pay off in such a great way is just wonderful and glorious, and I'm so glad they ended this way, and I don't know where they're going to go with this sequel, because I think this was a great way to end the series, honestly. But I'm getting more sequels, which, if it means I can see more Evan Peters as Quicksilver, and more James McAvoy as Charles Xavier, and more Michael Fassbender as Magneto, I'm okay with it. I am absolutely okay with it. I want to see where this series will go now. I think that they found a good ending spot, but I do want to know more. And I think the best movies can give you that. I really do. So I love this movie. I love X-Men. I love X-Men Days of Future Past. I thought it was incredibly excellent. Go see it right now. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if it's the evening. I don't care if it's early morning. It's 3:17 a.m. right now, and I am telling you, go see X-Men Days of Future Past. Thank you. Okay. Whew. Alright, well, I am tired, and I've probably talked enough about these movies alone down in my front room. So, yeah, if you disagree with any of the opinions that I had about Spider-Man or about X-Men here, then let me know if you even watch these reviews. I don't know. I'm going to be endeavoring to make more of these, but I don't know if I'll do it. I hope to be able to, but, I keep saying that and then I don't. So I'm really going to try and stick to it this time. I swear. But, yeah, so that's it for me. Signing out. Good evening, night, I guess, everybody, and, I hope somebody actually watches this. Bye.